Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The North American Aviation P-51 Mustang is an American long-range, single-seat fighter and fighter bomber used during World War II and the Korean War among other conflicts. The Mustang was designed in April 1940 by a team headed by James H. Kindleberger of North American Aviation in response to a requirement of the British Purchasing Commission. The Purchasing Commission approached North American Aviation to build Curtiss P-40 fighters under license for the Royal Air Force. Rather than build an old design from another company, North American Aviation proposed the design and production of a more modern fighter. The prototype NA-73X airframe was rolled out on the 9th of September 1940, 102 days after the contract was signed, and first flew on the 26th of October. The Mustang was designed to use the Allison 51710 engine, which had limited high-altitude performance in its earlier variants. The aircraft was first flown operationally by the RAF as a tactical reconnaissance aircraft and as the fighter-bomber Mustang Mark I. Replacing the Allison with a Rolls-Royce Merlin resulted in the P-51 BC Mustang Mark III model, and transformed the aircraft's performance at altitudes above 15,000 feet 4,600 meters without sacrificing range, allowing it to compete with the Luftwaffe's fighters. The definitive version, the P-51D, was powered by the Packard V16507, a license-built version of the two-speed, two-stage supercharged Merlin 66 engine, and was armed with 650 caliber 12.7 mm ANM2 Browning machine guns. From late 1943, P-51Bs and P-51Cs supplemented by P-51Ds from mid-1944 were used by the USAAF's 8th Air Force to escort bombers in raids over Germany, while the RAF's 2nd Tactical Air Force and the USAAF's 8th Air Force used the Merlin-powered Mustangs as fighter bombers, roles in which the Mustang helped ensure Allied air superiority in 1944. The P-51 was also used by Allied air forces in the North African, Mediterranean, Italian, and Pacific theaters. During World War II, Mustang pilots claimed to have destroyed 4,950 enemy aircraft. At the start of the Korean War, the Mustang, by then redesignated the F-51, was the main fighter of the United States until jet fighters, including North American's F-86, took over this role. The Mustang then became a specialized fighter bomber. Despite the advent of jet fighters, the Mustang remained in service with some air forces until the early 1980s. After the Korean War, Mustangs became popular civilian warbirds and air racing aircraft. The Mustang was initially developed for the RAF, which was its first user. As the first Mustangs were built to British requirements, these aircraft used factory numbers and were not P-51s. The order comprised 320 NA-73s, followed by 300 NA-83s, all of which were designated North American Mustang Mark I by the RAF. The first of the RAF's Mustangs was supplied under Lend-Lease were 93 P-51s, designated Mark IA, followed by 50 P-51s used as Mustang Mark IIs. Aircraft supplied to Britain under Lend-Lease were required for accounting purposes to be on the USAAC's books before they could be supplied to Britain. However, the British Aircraft Purchasing Commission signed its first contract for the North American NA-73 on the 24th of April 1940, before Lend-Lease was in effect. Thus, the initial order for the P-51 Mustang, as it was later known, was placed by the British under the Cash and Carry Programme, as required by the U.S. Neutrality Acts of the 1930s. After the arrival of the initial aircraft in the UK in October 1941, the first squadron of Mustang Mark I's entered service in January 1942, the first being No. 26 Squadron RAF. Due to poor high-altitude performance, the Mustangs were used by Army Corporation Command, rather than Fighter Command. and were used for tactical reconnaissance and ground attack duties. On the 10th of May 1942, Mustangs first flew over France, near Berck-sur-Mer. On the 27th of July 1942, 16 RAF Mustangs undertook their first long-range reconnaissance mission over Germany. During the amphibious Dieppe raid on the French coast on the 19th of August 1942, 4 British and Canadian Mustang squadrons, including 26 Squadron, saw action covering the assault on the ground. By 1943 to 1944, British Mustangs were used extensively to seek out V-1 flying bomb sites. The last of the RAF's Mustang Mark Is and Mustang Mark II aircraft was struck off charge in 1945. The 8th Air Force started operations from Britain in August 1942. At first, because of the limited scale of operations, no conclusive evidence showed American doctrine was failing. In the 26 operations flown to the end of 1942, the loss rate had been under 2%. In January 1943, at the Casablanca Conference, the Allies formulated the Combined Bomber Offensive Plan for round-the-clock bombing USAF daytime operations complementing the RAF's nighttime raids on industrial centers. In June 1943, the Combined Chiefs of Staff issued the point-blank directive to destroy the Luftwaffe's capacity before the planned invasion of Europe, putting the CBO into full implementation. German daytime fighter efforts were at that time focused on the Eastern Front and several other distant locations. Initial efforts by the 8th met limited and unorganized resistance, but with every mission, the Luftwaffe moved more aircraft to the west and quickly improved their battle direction. In autumn 1943, the 8th Air Force's heavy bombers conducted a series of deep penetration raids into Germany beyond the range of escort fighters. The Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission in August lost 60 B-17s of a force of 376. The 14th of October attack lost 77 of a force of 291 to 26% of the attacking force. For the U.S., the very concept of self-defending bombers was called into question, but instead of abandoning daylight raids and turning to night bombing, as the RAF suggested, they chose other paths. At first, bombers converted to gunships. The Boeing YB-40 was believed to be able to escort the bomber formations, but when the concept proved to be unsuccessful, thoughts then turned to the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. In early 1943, the USAAF also decided that the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51B be considered for the role of a smaller escort fighter, and in July, a report stated that the P-51B was the most promising plane with an endurance of 4 hours 45 minutes with the standard internal fuel of 184 gallons plus 150 gallons carried externally. In August, a P-51B was fitted with an extra internal 85-gallon tank, but problems with longitudinal stability occurred, so some compromises in performance with the tank full were made. Since the fuel from the fuselage tank would be used during the initial stages of a mission, the fuel tank would be fitted in all Mustangs destined for 8th Fighter Command. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time.